Hello, welcome again to another episode, part two of the conversation with Kevin Matlow on the balanced education model. After the first part, we start discussing about the conclusions that I made earlier in my introduction of part one, or regarding creativity and the three things that one needed to have, which is the mentoring, the collaboration first, peer influences and mentoring that one needs to have before one graduates, and attempt to practice. And there is this belief that the students need to actually adopt formal principles, um, learning from the architects that they admire, and actually when they did the project, they understand their form making aspect of their project rather than just letting the computer come up with it. And there was a criticism, of course, of um, tutors applauding such work, and they are not properly, shall we say, these students, these graduates are not properly had sufficient education, where they went into not confident of designing the form making aspect. But I think Kevin has something to say with it regarding this. It is beside the point, or it doesn't really provide the solution to understanding the problem that we're having with regard to graduates not confident to go into employment or being employed. So Kevin, welcome back. And yeah, we were talking about this, and you'd like to say that there are much more bigger problems here, or a deeper sense that we need to get to this conversation. Go on.
Sure. Let's parse it out first. On the one hand, we're talking about your conclusions of collaboration, peer influence, and mentorship, which I'll touch on later. But firstly, let's engage this whole issue of the confidence you feel of graduates, fresh graduates getting employment. Yeah. A lot of the confidence that a student, well, a straight A student might have, will be built on what you have already termed their confidence with formalisms, with their ability to shape mass and to give elevation to buildings, and to have a certain sense of identity associated with their work. Now, this is a false confidence. It's still rooted in a very deep insecurity, because you can't have a deeply, truly confident person who hasn't built that confidence on understanding relationships and the responsibility of those relationships. It's only founded on how much those formalisms can serve their reputation, can build their brand, and build their identity based on an aesthetic or a look. And so it doesn't matter whether it's a straight A student or student who's struggling with their grades. Most students around the world have this false confidence on employment, and they just merely get churned up by the machine as they serve it, becoming just another cog in the whole grind. That of churning out a new way of looking at things, looking, mind you, not understanding. Looking meaning aesthetics, beauty, and form. Yeah, but if we were to really focus on what a balanced education means, that not only do we teach students how to make things look good, which it's a default anyway, the human mind is hardwired to seeking beauty anyway. We can't avoid it, but we keep on overemphasizing, we keep on obsessing with it, and that creates a lot of unbalance. Now we balance the other half of that scale with responsibility, with understanding the power of relationships, the activities of a place, the fact that an orphanage isn't a place where people who don't have parents go to stay, but people who did not have the benefit of being nurtured go to learn about nurturing. Suddenly, you understand a different kind of relationship to what a project is. That an airport is not a portal to a new city or country, It is, in fact, a place about walking.
Yeah.
That we really begin to understand projects as a series of relationships rather than as objects. So an orphanage is no longer an institution. An airport is no longer a gateway. When we start an aquarium, it's not a place where you go to look at sea animals. It's not an icon of the sea. No, an aquarium is a place where you go to understand high tides and low tides. It's a place where you go to understand sunrises and sunsets, about the change of weather, about the incredible biodiversity of the oceans, the most powerful forces on Earth, the darkest shadows on the planet. It's all about these powerful relationships. And suddenly we won't design it as an object anymore. We'll design it as a series of relationships. Now, that's what's missing in education. So when students graduate, they are not graduating with that sense of confidence of understanding what it means to design. They only understand with confidence what it means to style, how to make things look at least passable, if not good. And that's a false confidence, because design is a lot more profound than that. Design is about asking questions no one has ever asked before. It's
Mm.
about asking questions about relationships, the power of education. What is a school? Is a school a place where you go to learn different things, or is a school a place where you go to learn how to become a different person? I think the second one is a hell of a lot more powerful. A statement. Yeah. So this is what I think relationships are about, and something that we don't learn about enough in school or in architecture school. Now,
It's as,
moving on to, sorry.
it's as if you have to be in touch with yourself. I mean, the whole exercise of education is trying to actually be brave enough to ask questions.
Yes, but asking questions is not really being in touch with oneself. If you want to talk about being in touch with oneself, about being in touch with what is already hardwired in us, it is about beauty. It's about all the shallow things. I mean, it's already hardwired in us to be on social media 24 hours a day. You make a post, you check on it 10 minutes, 5 minutes later to see how many people like it. That's how hardwired we are. That's already how hardwired we are to love ourselves. It's ridiculous. So,
Okay.
so no, no. It is not about being in touch with ourselves, but being in touch with truly others, being in touch with society,
Okay.
letting go of the self brand, letting go of, there's a great stand-up comic called Anthony Jeselnik. I don't know if you've heard of him. He presents very dark humor, and he did this terrific he's got this terrific what do you call it? Uh, uh, a thing called that he called Love and Prayers. Whenever you see on Facebook or social media where 10 children were shot in the United States in school, or a bus filled with tourists went over a ravine and everyone died in Italy, or an earthquake that killed 800,000 people in China. You see people who to type in, "Oh, love and prayers. Oh, I'm so
Mm.
sorry. All my support."
Yeah.
All those lovely things that they're putting out for the entire world to see. They're not really empathizing with what happened. What Anthony Jeselnik says is, all you're doing when you say love and prayers is you're saying lots of horrible things happening in the world right now today, but take a moment and think about me, please. It's absolutely true. That's all we want is our 5 minutes of attention. And that's what social media is boiled down to, which we don't even understand is being weaponized against us. Yeah. But let's move on. Let's move on to the three conclusions you made, which I find could be drawn a bit better.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
first being that of collaboration. Now, collaboration is such a fuzzy love word. It's so woke and so well taken by everyone the moment you use it, because we're tired of the individual moments of genius. We're tired of the Frank Lloyd Wrights and the Zaha Hadids. We feel woke enough to say that that's not for us. But it denies and it denies us the birthright of trying harder, what a collaboration is actually defined it's defined by equal contribution by all parties. And every collaboration, true collaboration I've ever been involved in, it resulted in an awful work because there was no leader. True collaborations end up with rubbish. It doesn't mean that good teamwork does not exist, but good teamwork is governed by extremely strong and good leadership to weave the thread of continuity through all the different parties. Without good leadership, you can't have good teamwork.
Okay.
So the word collaboration for me is a negative thing. If you want to talk about good collaboration, fine, but that's the same as good teamwork. Yeah, you need a good leader. Any collaboration which doesn't have a good leader will end up with a lot of rubbish.
So I like to go back to this so that um, uh, we can clearly see where the arguments are. When we were in studio with the design thesis students, I came to some ideas that we actually collaborated with individual students for them to finish their work. And you know, and then after that I interviewed the students and I said to them, how much percentage of collaboration did you feel that you did and the tutors had in your design? Some said 50% or some 80%, but never 100% that they did themselves. There was always some sort of collaboration for them, which they allowed, because it's their work, their thesis. But I guess maybe that's another word for it rather than collaboration. Or what do you think
The
about?
collaboration is a very bad word to use in education because as a teacher, you do not collaborate with students, you guide them. And what they're referring to or what they're understanding, you can't conflate the word collaboration with guidance. It doesn't work. And I
Okay.
think everyone likes that word. It's a woke word to use, and so everyone likes the use of it because it implies that everyone's equal. We are not equal. And as a teacher, you guide, which is perfectly fine. And as a student, you are led to a certain degree. And students and the good guidance happens when you as a teacher pick up on the best ideas a student might have and push aside the ideas which are not as consistent, and you allow them to work on those ideas which are theirs and develop those ideas in conjunction, not collaboration, in conjunction with the way you're guiding them.
Okay.
And that ends up with a very good student teacher relationship, which is not a collaboration. It's a teaching and it's learning.
You did good guidance. That's why they managed to actually
To
accept
do
your,
good work if they did, yes.
yeah, it worked.
And if a student did end up with such good work, then perhaps the guidance wasn't as good. Perhaps in that particular case, we as teachers were not able to pick up on the best of the ideas or to help them weave the relationship between their best ideas and how to develop them. Maybe, it's a variety of things. Some students are just naturally weak, in which case it was not so, the outcome was not as desirable as it could have been.
All right.
There are a variety of reasons then
Which
for why a
yeah,
project may not be developed as well.
because the originally we were talking about the Bauhaus and the idea of the Bauhaus, which there are very strong characters that in the history is related to us, that there are strong characters that lead these courses, and maybe that is the lacking of leadership in present universities.
Well, you got to be careful what you mean when you use the word strong leaders. When you use strong leaders,
Yeah.
I feel that you are trying to imply they're also good leaders, and
Okay.
that's not necessarily the case.
Not sure it's the case.
Yes, some of the strongest leaders in the world of architecture teaching were also the worst examples to follow.
Okay. All right. What the other word was peer influences. So you have the students being influenced by peers, which is not necessarily the ones at the same age, but people, I mean, architects that they follow. And a specific, and the third one was on mentoring, which is something that I myself I find important, to find people who actually, like you said, can guide a certain part of my life, right? People who can guide me on aspects of this career as an architect or a teacher, as especially when I was in my 20s or 30s. So that's the mentoring part that is to me important. So maybe you could comment on further on this.
Yeah, maybe I can speak about those two issues, peer influence and mentoring at the same time, because they are very, very closely related. Now, what I mean when I say they're very closely related is that they're related by the use of the word influence.
Yeah.
And influence is seen as either a good or bad thing, that you can be influenced in a good way or influenced in a bad way. To me, it doesn't really matter. To be influenced is necessarily in these days, in this day and age, is necessarily a very negative thing, because honestly, the most powerful influence, the most prevalent, encompassing influence that you understand in the world today is that through social networks. And that's the furthest thing from positive. So it doesn't matter whether you're influenced by your peers or you think you're being mentored by someone. There's a very big difference between being mentored and being influenced.
Okay.
And what's happening with a lot of what we call mentorship is that we're conflating that word mentorship with being influenced. And the word influence also by default leads on to the word influencer. And that's what the whole world is filled with today. Influencers, people who make posts of sound bites and little blurbs just to catch the attention of others. People like Kim Kardashian, the Kardashians, a lot of social media experts who have professionals running their accounts to tell them what to say, to in fact tell them how to influence. But that's the world of high Hollywood fashion and the world of personalities. You have the same thing happening in the architecture world. Look at our influences in Malaysia. We can mention names, of course,
No.
and you don't want to, right? You don't want to
Don't
be too
mention names,
controversial.
please.
Sorry?
Don't mention names if
Yeah. But they're there, and they make 5 to 10 posts every day. And it's inevitably all boils down to how they see the world, how they want you to know what they see of the world, what they have just done, not maybe what they've eaten for breakfast, but the latest thing they've built, or the latest thing they've planted, or the latest thing they've challenged. And this is not a mentorship. And this is what this is what the world has turned to for mentorship, which is this is the sorry state of the world we're in, that the only medium of mentorship we can find is through influences on social media. It's very, very sad. And we
yeah.
become followers because we think by following we can be mentored. This is a very, very dangerous precedent. And unfortunately, it's encompassed almost every aspect of our time on social media. It's scary beyond belief. And so, in the same way, peer influence, we follow those whom we admire. We follow, we follow, and those who we think we can mentor us without knowing they're a million miles away. They're talking to an ambiguous audience of 500,000, and we're just one of that number. And we don't realize um, that's not the work of a mentor. That's the work of an influencer, That's not a teacher. That's an influencer. That's not a guide. That's an influencer.
And everybody wants to be an influencer.
Everyone actually wants to be an influencer rather than to do good critical work, because it's a lot easier to be an influencer than it is to be a good guide, to be a good mentor, or to be a good teacher, or really to be an incredibly good critical designer or an architect or a thinker. Being an influencer takes no effort at all. Being famous takes no effort at all. Look at Elon Musk. Being rich takes, however difficult it is, takes very little effort in relation to being someone with integrity, someone with a deep sense of a critical thought, and who asks very important, relevant questions. That's very difficult. being anything else. Being a businessman, a rich businessman is the easiest sold out thing in the world. But we know that, and yet we still worship people like Elon Musk. It's unbelievable. So a client recently gave me this book that Walter Isaacson wrote about Elon Musk, and just reading the first paragraph made me think, oh my God, this is a book about branding. This man is not writing a critical book about Elon Musk. He's basically writing a book to help brand Musk. But people don't see that because they don't think and read critically anymore. They just want to drink the global Kool-Aid because they want to be part of that Kool-Aid. They want others to drink their Kool-Aid. We all want to be famous in that shallow way that breeds false confidence, you know? It's very sad. But I hope that people begin to see through that, because we are worth so much more. There's so much potential in each and every one of us if we only choose not to follow. Because in doing so, will you only then know if you can lead? And not everyone can be a leader. No, I'm not saying that's true. What I'm saying is you don't know if you can be till you choose not to follow. And we haven't learned that enough because school teaches us to build our reputations, not as a leader, but as an influencer. Okay?
We go
Big
back
difference.
to the student in Hong Kong, which built his thesis based on creating an app. I mean, this is the latest.
Build on the basis of creating an app to design the project, his thesis. So it's a twofold thing. He had a project that is app design then. It was shocking.
So what is that? I mean, that if he was lauded and applauded for doing that by his teachers, so what does it tell? Is that a good example to see what is happening in the architecture field that is going awry?
I tell you what's shocking about this project. The product of his project was awful. Even the teachers agreed that the project was an awful project.
Mm.
And yet they praised the process whereby the product was
Wow.
came about. How is that possible? How could anyone be so short-sighted to praise a process that produced an awful product?
That is really, really disconcerting and worrying, because the process is something that need to be the right process. I mean, the architectural process has
There's no such thing as a right. In a way, there's no such thing as a right process, Naz. But they are relevant processes and
relevant process.
irrelevant processes. An irrelevant process will churn out a product that's rubbish. And you can't praise a product that is rubbish by praising its process. And that's what happens. It's disconcerting because there's this crazy disconnect between one and the other. And that's what's happened with the world. This project especially underlined everything that's wrong with education in the world right now.
Okay.
For me, please.
So we have tutors that has already, shall we say, sold their soul or something, or not really.
Well, tutors that came from the professional world that maybe did not make it super big in the professional world. So they're not super famous architects lecturing all around the world because their work is so formally famous, even if it may be shallow. But they choose to teach because, in the developed world, teaching is the research for their work. Another shallow comment made by a lot of teachers. And so they pass on the things their famous architect teachers taught them, which is to build their own reputations. And so that's what we've got in the world right now. A lot of teachers who either didn't make it in the private sector or who made it a bit successful in the private sector and have gone back to teaching all the dominant paradigms that already flood and are suffocating the profession.
How do we
That's
resist?
what's happening in schools.
How do we resist this selling reputations? How do we resist this? What should we do?
Well, it begins with education, doesn't it?
Yeah, I did.
And it's tough because it really, social media is the most powerful weapon on the planet right now. And it's being used against us without our knowing about it. It influences us to think. and make decisions a certain way because of all that, the little windows and that sidebar which tells us who of our friends also liked and voted for the same thing. It's crazy and mind-numbing, but it's so addictive. The dopamine levels that it kicks in each of us is unbelievable. And to have people begin to become a bit more aware of it. It's not as though dozens of books haven't already been written about this, but we are not reading these books because reading belongs to the realm of the old, of the has-beens. It's old-fashioned to read now. We just want to look at sound bites and not even read them. We just look at them and we understand them as a gestalt. And that's what social media is, the path that it's led us down, you know. It's scary. We need
Knowledge,
it's only
seek
through
knowledge.
education. It's
Yeah.
only through education that this can be changed. I can't even credit home education with this because many parents are doing exactly the same thing that children are. They're millennials at the very least now, if not baby boomers like me, and they're behaving in very much the same way as their own children. So like you can't even trust parents to do what's right. It's schools, and somehow the government has to step in, but you can't have an infantile government doing that for us. Yeah, somehow a good leader at some point has to come to the helm and to change things in the education system systematically in places around the world to act as hotspots for this change. But is it going to happen? I don't know. I'm not a pessimist, but I'm also somewhat of a realist that the momentum of the world, the momentum of social imbalance, of social wants rather than needs, of social, well, basically social momentum is of such a weight and burden. It's become this huge avalanche, this huge landslide, unstoppable landslide down a slope that's endless. And perhaps like climate change, it is a bit too late. You know, we can only see. Of course, I still have hope. That's why I still teach. That's why I still live. I mean, you know, hope. The world of the hopeless belongs to so, the societal. You know, and that's why people commit suicide. They have no more hope. And I'm not suicidal. I still have hope, but but that hope is tinged with a lot of realism, I think, because I don't know if we can make the change quick enough. Yeah. We can't even make the change to understand that when we talk about saving the planet, it's not the planet we're talking about saving, it's our sorry asses. But the moment, but we don't want to talk about the first person. It's easy to talk about a planet in the third person because the third person then needs help. We can help the third person. But to say that we need help, oh no, 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 we can't do that. It's too close to home. That's too difficult to stomach. And that's why it's always about saving the whales, saving the planet, using less plastic. You know, it's about the third person. But you know what? It's ourselves we're saving. If we were to get rid of human beings the day after tomorrow, the earth will tumble its merry way around the sun, healing itself, you know, without us. We are the worst virus that the planet has ever hosted. And this is the problem. We think we're the center of the world. We're not. And until we can come to grips with that, it's only our sorry state that we're saving if we were to save the planet. And I don't think we care enough. The businessmen sure as hell don't. I mean, look at Elon Musk talking about going to the stars. Wait a minute. He has enough money to start saving, really, truly saving humanity on our own planet through distribution, not through wealth accumulation, which is all he knows. That's all a businessman knows. That's how they become wealthy. Yeah. But we don't think about the logistics of distribution. We don't think about in every school in the world one day, if we live long enough, I'm thinking there will be this one department that rises above all the departments. It'll be called the Department of Logistics, the School of Logistics. And it's all about how we distribute wealth, about how we distribute food, how we distribute energy, transport, food, education, healthcare. It's all about distribution because this is the most powerful logistic we have in all our discoveries, in all our efforts to innovate, in all our abilities to unravel the double helix. We have not given 1 ounce, 1 iota of of 1 joule of energy to understanding how to distribute what we have. And that's shocking to me. That's the distinction between being primitive, being barbaric, and being civilized. We are the at the lowest level of what being civilized can mean, you know?
That collective consciousness.
No, we have no collective consciousness. We like to talk about it as a Gaia concept, but it's only to make ourselves feel better, you know, not to actually address issues of the deepest concern.
All right. So would you like to end
And
it
on
here?
that, and on that pessimistic note,
Would you like to have another 5 minutes on talking?
no, I'm good. I'm good if you are.
Done with this topic. Um, sharing. This is great sharing.
Unless you have something else you'll talk about.
Balanced education
Good.
model. I also can't really say anything.
Yeah, it's
About
quite,
education is kind of
yeah,
interesting that we
it's
don't know.
quite dark. It's quite a dark topic.
Utopian.
But it's good to have dark topics. I'm sick and tired of TEDx. I'm sick and tired of all these fuzzy love, happy, woke, positive things. It's hiding the deeper truths of the planet. It's hiding the deeper truths of our lack of education. It's hiding the deeper truths of such a huge imbalance in what the world is about. We keep on believing that change is made, that we can make change all over the world without changing ourselves. That's wrong. And I think that it should be dark because when everything is bright, light, and happy, you can't tell the difference anymore.
I think that is a message that you have been telling, um, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
from your realist perspective, that a number of people are on social media all the time, and we just hope that individuals
Mhm.
could be much more critical in thinking about everything. There could be a critical mass of people that putting up their hands and saying that we are just destroying ourselves this way and going back to the fundamentals.
No,
That
maybe I could just end on this note that that if you're going to talk about process, your process, and how you process thinking, how you process creative, how you process thought, you can never have a true critical process that's based on being inspired. You can't. The definition is there. A critical process is based on critique. It cannot be based on success, solutions, or being inspired by someone else. It cannot be based on copying or appropriating ideas from someone else. It cannot be based on being influenced. It has to be based on your specific ability to be critical. And that's what the definition of a critical process is. So for anyone out there trying to develop their own critical process, because obviously you'd rather have a critical than a commercial process. If you want a commercial process, just go and read all those books about Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and Warren Buffett. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. Those are all commercial processes, which I'm sure we all already know enough of. Yeah, but if you really want to develop a true critical process worth its integrity, worth its foundation in your life, just know it's got to be built on being critical, on having that deep sense of critique. No other, it can be achieved through no other way, and the least of all to be inspired. And that on that note, I think that should sum it up. Yeah, on a positive note on
yeah, of
critique.
course, yeah, that is great, Kevin. I think that that's enough for us for today. And we
More
need
than
to
enough.
actually go and absorb this in. I myself, I would like to absorb this and listen to it again. And I am grateful that you could come and give a chat for one
All
and a half
good.
hours of part one and part two. And that's all. Thank you very
All
much.
good. You're very welcome. Let me know if you ever need to talk again. See
Yes,
you, Naz. Bye.
thank you, Kevin.